Right. So we'll get started with our workshop tonight. The first item on the agenda is the Hamilton County Assessor of Property, Marty Hayes, going over our reassessment.
Yeah, thank you. Is it close enough? Yeah, how about that? Are we good now? Can everyone can hear me? All right. Thank you for having us here today. We won't take very long, but I'm trying to get around all the councils, town councils, commissions, town commissions, city commissions, whatever, or our county commission. 2021 is a reappraisal year for Hamilton County. This happens once every 4 years. The last obviously was in 2017. And just so you understand a little bit of how the process works, we have already submitted our plan for 2025 to the state. They have approved it. We will present that. I'll be at the county commission Wednesday morning of this week to present it, and then they'll vote on it again next week. And what that plan does is just show everything we work off of is a map group and parcel number. And we just show which maps we're going to work, which years, and go from there. With me today is Gary Green, who works part of this area, not all of Collegedale, but works a good part of it as a residential appraiser for us. And he's here with me today. I think the easiest thing for a general understanding of what a reappraisal is and what it does, the comptroller's office last summer, 2 summers ago, created this little video. It's a little cheesy, but the good news is it only lasts 2 minutes, so it makes it quick and simple. And my grandchildren watched it and they understand it, so we'll just go that as the baseline of understanding. We're good. Yeah.
Meet Steve. This is Steve's house, and this is Steve's property assessment notice. If you own property in Tennessee, it's the job of your county assessor to figure out how much it's worth. Depending on which county you're in, an updated value for your property is determined every 4, 5, or 6 years during a process called a reappraisal. And since property values generally go up over time, there's a good chance that your house, commercial property, or land will be appraised at a higher value. Steve's property has gone up in value. So what does this mean for his property taxes? Here's the good news. Higher values during a reappraisal do not necessarily mean higher taxes. Tennessee law requires the state work with your assessor and county mayor to adjust your property tax rate. So when appraisals go up, your tax rate goes down. It's known as the certified tax rate. The concept is simple. The new certified tax rate will generate the same amount of tax revenues for your city or county as the amount billed in the previous year. Let's say all of the properties in Steve's community increased in value by an average of 20%. Steve's house also increased 20%, but thanks to the certified tax rate, he should pay just about the same amount in property taxes he paid last year. The only way the certified tax rate can be exceeded is if Steve's county commission or city council decides to hold a public hearing and adopt a new higher rate. When you receive a new property appraisal, it helps to understand how you're protected by the certified rate. But pay attention to your local government meetings to know if leaders are thinking about exceeding it. Remember, the assessor values your property. The county commission or city council determines how much you'll pay in taxes.
Yeah, you don't want to play that. So. All right, so that's a brief understanding of reappraisal process and how we arrive at and what happens after you get your reappraisal, as we call it in the office, your property value reappraisal notice. Because what we're interested in and what we are required to do by state law is we've got a few extra of those copies if the public or I can mail it, email it to you, and you can distribute it, put it on your website for folks to look at. As well. But let's if you can skip the cover page, go to the Collegedale City Commission. As it was stated in the video, an increase in property values does not necessarily mean an increase in your property tax revenue. Yet it has to be the same this year as it was last year, exclusive of new construction in your area, whether it's Collegedale or Hamilton County as a whole. And put out there for you the state law that says that 67.5, 1701A, Section A, 1 through 3. The big question we get from folks is, how do you arrive at our value? And because we don't go in your home, we are not, for those who are here today, we're not allowed in your home unless you call us and schedule an appointment. And if you think about it, in today's world, with all the liabilities and legal aspects of someone entering your home, particularly from a government agency, that's something you probably don't want, and certainly not. We will do it, but we want a scheduled appointment, and we want two property owners, at least two people, at least the property owner and someone else there, because they're going to be two people from our office. We won't enter if there's just one person at home. Quick overview of the county. There are roughly 150,000 residential properties. We use comparable sales. So all the sales, and we're going to get to that in just a minute for what we have seen recently in Collegedale. We track those comparable sales that are qualified sales. They're all legal, but there are some. It's got to be an arm's length transaction or it doesn't qualify. So that's the main thing. If you look quickly, we review home sales from the previous 4 years. Interesting note, there were more homes sold in Hamilton County in 2020 than there were in 2019, even with COVID and the pandemic that we have dealt with. And I believe that is also true for Collegedale. You had 195 home sales in 2020 within your city limits, as opposed to 179 the previous year. So that's an increase of home sales by about 9% from 1 year to the next. The overall increase across the county was roughly 11% in 2020. That was higher than it was in 11% higher in 2020 than it was in 19, and then 8%. And you can go back up. We don't have to read all that. Let's talk a little bit about the numbers in Collegedale in particular. In 2019, the median sales price was $390,000. In 2020, it was $405,000. The average sale price was $420,000 in 2019. 2020 was $435,000. Now, that's just from 1 year to the next. We didn't go all the way back to 17 to track and see the number of home sales we had here in Collegedale from 17 through 20. And if you look at that bottom column, we've already had 36 home sales in the first quarter of 2021. That's through the end of March. I don't think, is that current?
Well, I think you're reading Signal Mountain.
Am I reading Signal Mountain? Oh, well, excuse me then. Sorry about that. Y'all are looking, no wonder you're looking at me funny. So sorry. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for correcting me in public. So sorry, I'm going to Signal Mountain next as soon as I leave here. So I've got two reports packed in here together. Sorry about that. Seriously, my apologies. So we've got a difference of 117 sales in 2019 as opposed to 119 sales in 2020. And we've had 42 sales here in Collegedale. And is that current or is that through the first quarter? That's as of today. We've had 42 sales in Collegedale just within the city limits. The average sale price this year is $326 thus far. Last year it was $309.64, as you see. The total value of the sales last year was $36,778,624. This year, the total value of the sales is already at $13,693,000. So again, an increase in value in the homes that are selling at a higher value than what they did last year, which the average was 309, and now we're at 326 already. So we're about 7% higher this year than we were last year. The year before, whatever the number was 19% higher here across the board. So again, home sales, there is a limited supply of homes for sale across Hamilton County right now. The last number a week or so ago that I had was less than 700 across Hamilton County. And housing starts have slowed just a little bit because of the rising material costs that we're facing right now. So those are some of the things that that are impacting the market as a whole. So your certified tax rate will come in. There's another sheet that I need to get to quickly. Yeah, the certified tax rate, that's the history from Hamilton County. You can see every 4 years that it has dropped. And then I don't know what your history in Collegedale has been, but you'll get a certified tax rate from between my office and the comptroller's office. That'll be sometime in late July. It'll be your decision as commission members whether you want to accept that rate or whether you want to exceed it. That's completely up to you. But we will supply a number that will give you the exact same dollars that you received last year, exclusive of new growth. So with that, I will stop and answer any quick questions and try not to take up any more of your valuable time. No, everybody looks good. You've got the main thing for the residents. If anyone in town calls you, just call the office. That's the main thing we want to get out to folks. Call 209-7990, 209-7990. There's a separate number for commercial properties, 209-7999. But residential properties, if anybody's got a question, if they think we are overvalued, just call us 209-7990. They can email us. You can go also onto our website, hamiltontn.gov. You can search, we're at the bottom of the page, find the assessor's page, and you can find a link there. You can put your address in, and it will show the sales, the 2020 sales that were closest to your home from last year. And it's an amazing tool that we've added. It's been very helpful for us when we're able to talk to the public, because 95% of the phone calls we get are not so much about the value, but are my taxes going up? So just to let you know ahead of time that you're going to get those calls as well as commissioners going forward. So anything else?
We appreciate you coming.
Okay, thanks very much. Sorry for the confusion with the report, but operator error on my part there.
So next on the agenda is a roundabout at Leland and Swinier for Cynthia Way. Passed out some sketches. This is just to show you the size of one. I didn't get into R values and that sort of thing. This is the smallest typical that TDOT has. It's 105 feet across. If you notice, it would take out essentially all the existing landscaping in that area. It would also require the acquisition of additional right-of-way, some from Greenbrier, some through the easements that are on the parcels that front Swinier, and some additional property from the parcels that are on Swinier in order to get it in to fit. Rough, just envelope level cost estimate or guess at this point would be about $450,000, maybe closer to $5,000, depending on the cost of design and survey and utility relocation. We do know that there's power there for some of the signs and that sort of thing, but I don't believe that there's significant sewer infrastructure that we have to move or anything like that. So any questions? That's the information. I would recommend leaning against it at this point until such time as there's a demonstrated need, just due to the cost and the impact on the area. Those funds at this point would probably be better suited, maybe building the parking across the creek or something like that, until we realize or actually observe a true problem that would be remedied with an expense of this magnitude.
So can those signs, if you're on Swinier Drive heading towards Leland Drive, can those monument signs be picked up or saved, or
It
is it a
depends on,
guarantee that they'll be destroyed when we try to do something with them?
it depends on how they're constructed. When we've done the large mailboxes, we're about 50-50. So it would really, if we got a little lucky, we could save them, but I would budget pessimistically and plan to have to replace them.
So you think about $500,000 to do this?
That would be the starting point. I'm not sure what the property acquisition cost would be. We would have to get much further into design to know exactly utility relocations and that sort of thing. There will be some water in the area, how much of it can stay and be paved over versus having to be relocated, et cetera.
Is there any potential that we could partner with McKee's Corporation to cover some of this?
We can ask. To date, that conversation has not been had.
We could also investigate as whether they would assist the owners with that.
We can ask.
I could definitely see because it is a potential impact. And I'm not opposed to waiting a little bit till we see. It would be nice if it was there beforehand, but if there's a potential we could get some funding, it would help. Because this is an unplanned project, correct?
Correct. It's not anywhere on the radar.
And we're not opposed to it. Is that what you're saying? We just need to evaluate it.
Correct. Right now, my opinion is that we don't have a demonstrated problem that necessitates a $500,000 expenditure. But to your point and to the mayor's point, I'll be happy to reach out to the owners at Greenbrier and to McKee and at least see if there's any receptiveness to some sort of cost share. A project like this would probably take about a year to design and permit.
I would hope as they build the park, they would take into consideration this curve so that we don't have to redo part of the park because it would take the property out.
So we would also have to buy the right of way across from where the park is and then at Greenbrier Cove by the pond
It would have to be acquired,
required.
whether it was donated or sold. It's too early to tell.
Am I understanding right? That's not in the $450,000 to $500,000. That's extra, right?
Correct. That would be.
And I'm sure there's probably no funding available through a grant for something like this.
Not right now. The next call for projects would be for the 2025 to 2030 cycle through the TPO. This project probably would not grade very well, just based on the level of magnitude of the road. Anything else? Next is the maintenance of the medians on Stratton Lane, and Eric's going to talk us through that.
Yes. So there are several medians up on the top of Bowen Mountain on Stratton Lane and one on Bowen Mountain. The city has maintained them for quite a while. Previously, the city maintained it with self-staff, and then we had multiple injuries, workman comp claims, some bee stings, and so we determined that it wasn't really safe for our guys to be out there doing that. And so we moved towards having a company take care of the middle part of the median where our mowers couldn't reach. And we've been doing that for the past three and a half years. The schedule has been 2 to 3 mowings per year, approximately every other time we go through and mow it. That's what Ted and I had talked about and had financially decided we would put towards this. It has been brought up about us mowing it more often, and I told Mr. Sarosh that if he wanted that, then it'd be best to take it before the commission. So I'm here to talk about it. I talked with Wayne about it, and he and I both feel like it could be reasonable to increase that to every time the city comes in and mows it, then the contractor would come in and mow behind us as well. Currently, depending on how tall it is, it's about $600 to $800 to cut it per time. It would probably be a little bit cheaper if we went more frequently because it won't be as tall. It won't take as long to cut it. So my recommendation would be to have the company mow it every time we mow it. That I think is fair, defendable. It's not like we're providing any more attention to this area than anywhere else. It gets cut on the same schedule.
The additional cuttings would probably result to maybe 3 or 4 additional cuttings a year.
Yes, I would say 3 or 4 additional cuttings. So we're spending approximately $2,000 to $2,500 right now. It'd probably be, a total of $4,000 or $5,000 a year.
Yeah, I would like to see us mowing it as much as possible because it is city property and distressed looking properties can affect home values. So I don't want city property to be causing harm to others. So whatever we need to do to make it, it is our property. If it wasn't necessarily our property, it'd be something different, but the effect that it has on property values, especially in that area, it could, in my professional opinion, be detrimental. So I think we need to do what we need to. We need to do as much as we can to make that look as nice as possible. And maybe some ground covering in there, mulch or something to kind of eliminate the grass there so that we don't have to go in and mow it. Could be a feasible option, kind of reduce costs.
A couple years ago, Eric tried planting love grass, and that was not that successful. And we have brainstormed other options. Mulch on that kind of a grade with significant rain ends up on the downhill property owners.
Yeah, I see one of the property owners telling me that mulch won't work there. So
Right. So I think we would continue to investigate other options. But right now, the easiest would be for us to just increase cuttings.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I had meant to get there and drive and look at that. I know that this has been a topic for many, many years, and Jack Parnell used to come in and yell at us and say, don't touch that, keep your mowers off of it. But we've seen the full circle, if you will. Is that something that you could put river rock in to keep grass from growing, or,
Some of the slopes are so steep that unless you concrete whatever you put in there, it's not going to stay. We even a couple of years ago tried some hydro seeding, and it didn't take very well. Anything that we do up there, apart from maintaining what's there, is going to probably not work.
yeah. The only concern I have about putting mulch down is you're treating that area different from other
Yeah.
areas. So I'm okay with us mowing it, as long as it's within your authority, unless it needs to come back to the city commission. to do that.
Also looking at this picture, does the bushes need to be trimmed as well?
I believe there are some up there in the planter that are needing some attention to be trimmed, yes.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. So next on the agenda is city property at 3764 Prospect Church Road. Kelly's going to present this for us.
Do you object switching 4 and 5? It's in, actually, number 4 is at the tail end of this presentation. So if you don't object.
Not at all. So
Start
we'll actually start with city branding and signs and social media.
All right, thank you. Let me get this. Okay, so that kind of spills the beans a little bit on it right here, but thank you. I'm going to pull this off just for a little bit since I'm the only one here. But this is a conversation that has come up several times among staff, among citizens, the Planning Commission, and some of the commissioners here I know about what is Collegedale's brand. So fortunately, this is an area that is seeing more and more crossover between city planning, placemaking, and then basically branding. And it's more than just marketing. It's more than just a tagline. It's more than just a logo. But I do want to talk to you about that, kind of how some of the approaches that we have outlined, which is really standard practice, evolving standard practice with city branding. And it really starts right here. And so we'll get into that just a little bit. So if you can bear with me for some of these presentations here, or one of these presentations. Let's start with logos. Does anybody know what this logo is for? I want to be interactive. I mean, because we sit pretty quietly in here, so I'm trying to be a little more dynamic in here, even though I'm sitting. I'm a sit-down comedian, not a stand-up.
I don't have it on my phone, but it's Snapchat.
Snapchat. That one?
LinkedIn,
LinkedIn, Reddit,
Firefox.
Firefox, NBC, Twitter, National Parks,
I try to pick the ones without the words in it.
Publix, Apple, Southern,
Southern.
Lookouts.
Wi-Fi. So these were pretty, I mean, Eric was over here, I know, but I think they're pretty recognizable as soon as you see it. You kind of already know what to expect when you see the logo. I was in a seminar in Nashville where we kind of did something similar to this. When Snapchat popped up, my first thought was sneaky kids, but all the same, that was my first thought. But I want to talk about branding and how you arrive at a logo. How do you get there? So if you'll kind of bear with me just a little bit, watch about 2 minutes. I'll beat Marty Hayes. But as you know, this is Pixar. Notice the emblem there. So this is about a 2-minute short. You all may or may not have seen this in the theater at some point. There's a reason why I'm showing this, because when we get to the end here, you take, close attention here. The rendering, everybody gets the credits. Pixar, Marin County, California. Okay, if you didn't catch that, let's go to the next slide here. And the reason I have who and what were you is because it ties into this video. Look closely, Pixar, copyright 1986. This was rendered in 1986 on technology available in 1986. And so that's actually kind of a big deal. Notice that one logo there that they used at the time, and then notice the copyright date. This is their logo today. They still use this short that was created in 1986. And, 1986, I have, certain images of 1986, but there's the square emblem you saw earlier, the logo. That is the mainframe used to create that 2-minute animation, which in 1986 was groundbreaking. I wasn't thinking of anything such in 1986. I was running around with a football trying not to get tackled. So what I'm saying is you have to look where you are, what is in your DNA. Pixar still uses this logo today because it became part of their DNA of who they were in 1986. So you have to explore that. You can't just create it out of thin air. You've got to use what you have. What kind of attributes do you have? So cities, states, places, they have an image. They can be branded as well. I've just kind of thrown in a few things, just kind of random here. These are actual places, including Party City. So you have to create a brand identity based on your conditions. But remember, a logo or an icon is not the final word in branding, and it's actually not even the first or second. It's really the end result. So how do you start with a brand? How do you know what your brand is? You may kind of have a certain innate feeling of what that is. It's what I'm going to call the 3C LT approach, and that sounds like maybe an approach into some kind of, that's aviation speak, but it needs to be compelling. Your brand needs to be compelling. It needs to be coherent, meaning it needs to square with reality. It needs to be consistent across your platforms, whether it is your social media, whether it is your city signage, whether it is a logo that appears here on a truck or at an event. And it needs to be long-term. It needs to be something that is going to be lasting. So that's the easy part. So that's how we create our brand identity. So first questions, what are our objectives? Who are our target markets? Who are we trying to reach? Citizens, of course, ourselves, our internal employee base, but also those looking to come here or do business here. So what images come to mind when somebody hears Collegedale? Anybody just throw something out there? College. I mean, it's right there in the name. So the college. I mean, people who think about quality of life and thinking about this part of the county, that's one of the first things they think of. And I'm sure there are other attributes, and that's what our task is actually. So is it the history, the employment opportunities, the natural scenery, parks, safety? What is it? We have to determine this before we know what our brand is. We can talk about it, but it has to be formalized at some point. So how has the city's identity evolved historically? Past image is prologue, and I say, or is it? It's really not. Past image is prologue, but it really does stick with you for good or bad. And I'm not saying we're either right now. We just simply don't know. Because present is fleeting, but the image is lasting. Kind of goes back to that whole, you have one chance to make a good first impression. So what do we need to do? We need to define our future image by communicating our brand identity. So what are the key advantages or benefits that Collegedale can provide the target market. So these are things to think about. We're not going to solve this here or actually launch out on a path tonight, but I want you to be aware of what goes into branding a place. So this is one thing I want you to keep in mind. If we don't communicate the brand image that we want, someone else will do it for us. In truth, they already are. So this is our opportunity to alter our brand image or create our brand image or fine tune it, hone it, polish it, however you want to look at it, because somebody else is already doing that for good or for bad. So how do you start this? You need engagement, input from stakeholders, residents, business owners, visitors, board of commissioners, the appointed board members like the planning commission, city staff, regional partners and leadership, regional elected officials. You have to think outside of your bubble as well, because the perspective that we have may not square with what somebody else on the outside might think. And it's constructive. This is all constructive. So we have to ask those questions. So determine that target market, identify the key city characteristics, and of course, not all will be positive, but develop the attributes that are positive and highlight our competitive advantages. Scenery, safety, recreation, employment, who knows? I've got a blank there just because that's to be determined. Those may or may not fall in. So the next steps is to discover the central idea after going through this process, which explains what's unique about our city. And to do that, we have to consider the past, the present, and the future, and assess the gap between the current perceptions and reality. So why is this important? This is, like I said, an evolving area where other cities are doing this. And if you don't practice this, like I said also earlier, somebody else is going to do it for us. And so we showed a lot of logos, and the city logo represents the spirit and character of the place, not the incorporated entity, because that's what official seals do. We have the official seal here. That is the incorporated city of Collegedale, Tennessee. That's what that seal represents. A logo represents a sense of place. It represents the place, not the corporation. So a logo must be able to carry the brand image. And consider the brand and the logo working together. It's the language and imagery used to communicate a sense of place. So common design language through city functions, vehicles, web presence, social media, signage, etc. We have a wide variety of signage in the city right now and then some areas we don't have signage at all to guide people and wayfind through the city. So that is certainly something that we would like to achieve through our department, combining the fields of communication, outreach, branding with city planning, which there is more and more crossover in those. So my undergraduate degree is in communications and advertising. When I left that behind and went into city planning in grad school, I never thought they would cross back over again, but I saw more and more that I was doing a lot of this each and every day, whether it's customer interaction, planning commission, or actually on a larger scale, branding. So just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of got a sense of that. And this is an initiative that we are looking at that would help craft a consistent message through our signage. Whereas the Commons has already kind of set the bar there. And I know Commissioner Garver has a sign that he would like to kind of emulate that one on the veterans property, which is great. So we're trying to just begin the process of a consistent message so that when you arrive in Collegedale, you know, if you see a sign, you know it's a city sign because it represents the place and not just the incorporated city. So are there any questions on that? I kind of dragged that out a little bit, but then again, there's a lot more to talk about. And so what we're asking is the commission's kind of take and buy in on this becoming part of our department's function because the crossover is so, viable there. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer some.
When are you going to begin the process?
Well, as soon as possible. I wanted to see if the commission thought it was something to pursue. We certainly do, and hope that you did as well.
I think it would be nice for us to have a logo that people will recognize with Collegedale. I like the process.
One good thing about this is that we're undertaking this. Cities can either, do it themselves, in-house talent, hire a brand consultant. We feel that we have the resources and the expertise in-house to do this. So there would not be a consultant, or maybe use some volunteer graphic design work if it comes to that. But we don't see this as an expensive initiative. We see this as being one that really will pay nothing but dividends once we go through the process.
One thing about having consultants, the university a few years ago went through looking at their new logo and branding. And they came up with something that we know is there today. And supposedly it was supposed to be unique to Southern. But since then, I've seen about 4 or 5 logos that look exactly the same that came out of the same consultant office.
We won't be following up with clip art.
Yeah, I think it's a good step in the right direction as we grow and rebrand ourselves. The seal is great for the seal, but having it on other documents for recruitment and whatnot portrays a rigid, unwelcoming sense of community, and that's not Collegedale. So I think this, and doing it in-house is smart as well because they're all local.
And we have resources at UTC, at Southern, and plus planning. Our department, Kirsten and myself, we are very
We could also do
excited about this.
a community contest, submit logos and things like that. We don't have to use it, but it could at least give some ideas of what's out there, and could also be some community buy-in.
Right, because we don't have anything laid out as far as here's the process but other than what I have here, but I can see that being
Because
definitely part
I
of
think
it.
justice, safety, and efficiency doesn't really describe, a growing city.
It's good for official documents.
That's more the police.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking
Yeah, the incorporation, the actual government side of things. So.
And I know that the Commons sign, it uses a bronze version of that without the color, which actually is very workable because the park, it is part of the physical assets of the city, and that can work in those cases, but getting that place there, that's where the logo comes in, and then the branding ultimately. They're not exactly interchangeable, but they work kind of hand in hand.
Kelly, I have to say, I've been through this process of what you presented numerous times in the corporate world and our education world. Some of the best work I think that we ever achieved came through in-house. It's hard and it takes time, but you've done a great beginning here.
Thank you. And in-house means that we simply will compile the feedback that we get from you all and members of the public, citizens. So in-house means, that's the first thing. We're going to need help, but that's going to be input in learning things that, new angles to new ways to look at it. And then bring something forward after that. So today was just to kind of gauge the interest in it. But this is something that can start very soon. Consider it almost like any other planning process where you have public input, and it's virtually the same thing. That's one of the reasons why there's so much crossover.
Kelly, will you also talk about how this ties?
No, we're right there. And this is something that I definitely wanted you all to be aware of, that I don't know if you've noticed that our social media presence, we've kind of changed some things. The Planning and Economic Development has assumed primary responsibility for the city's social media for immediacy. When something comes up, we try to get on top of that. So one of the things we're trying to do is to increase and improve communication with Collegedale residents. So I won't read all of that. So we're able to, being in-house once again, to not have someone in another state that is kind of handling this as a consultant. We're not doing that. This is the immediate needs that need to get out. So one of the things to keep in mind is that we will not use social media for official correspondence, such as public records requests, grievances, complaints. That's not the appropriate platform for it. This is more communication with our constituents, and by constituents, meaning citizens and other stakeholders. So just to keep in mind that in the past month, here are some of the stats that this is on Facebook alone. Since we've started adding some posts and being strategic in when they're dropped, if you will, or pushed out, you can see the numbers there, how much reach and engagement that we've seen just by doing this, just by being strategic with these news releases. And because of this, we're recommending that the city adopt an official social media policy terms of use, which that is one of the things that is best practices, that is a must do. We're working on language since that's an internal policy matter. But I did want you all to be aware of that this is to protect users and the city who use social media platforms. When is it appropriate to post something? When is it appropriate to remove something? What triggers that process? Is it inflammatory language? Is it threats? Is it, what is it? That would be outlined in social media policy. And so it's recommended that all cities who engage with social media and have a presence adopt that post haste if they haven't already. So Social Media Center would be created on the website to combine all official city social media pages and to list how social media terms of use, because we have multiple online presence, in different areas, if you will. We have Facebook, PD has Facebook, we have Parks and Rec, we have a Parks and Rec website, we have the main city website, we have Collegedale Tomorrow Foundation has a web page, and the Commons has a web page. So there's a lot to wrangle, and that goes back to branding once again, keeping it consistent, not control in the sense of content necessarily, but just consistency when things go out, and so that everything falls into place that way, and it seems consistent. So that's just a brief update on what we're doing with social media. We've seen a lot of success. I know, Wayne, you had sent the TDOT message that they were activating the light at Edgemond Road and Lee Highway at some point this week in the coming days. So I pushed out a Facebook notice on that. This is at 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's a long story. But within 2 minutes at those small hours of the morning, I was getting feedback from it already. And we've had, I think our reach is now well over around 8,000 people at this point, with the different shares and the likes. So that was a big people, and the news has been positive. The reaction's been very positive. So that's one of those things. We have new followers based on that. And so that's always a good thing. So just wanted you all to be aware of that. If you'd noticed anything different or not, we want to let you know what's going on behind the scenes. So any questions on?
I got back from Nashville last night around 2 in the morning. I saw you posted it. I was wondering who was up posting, but there was a comment 20 minutes later at like 2:07.
Yeah,
They had been
it was
20 minutes. So
people are up at all hours. I'm normally not, but it was a different set of circumstances. So I thought, well, I might as well get that on out there and see. So, and we did get response pretty quickly and all through the day. Are there any other questions? If not, we can move on. The item 4, surplus property update, just to Also, to let you all know what's going on with this, 3764 Prospect Church Road. This is formerly the Victor Weedman property that had a number of issues on the property, including a structure that ultimately had to be condemned due to health, safety, welfare, life safety issues. The property had to be cleaned up. It was condemned. And so, let's see, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So due to the overwhelming presence of garbage and other hazardous debris, I'll leave it at that. The city initiates condemnation proceedings. And in 2019, there was a concurrent tax sale for delinquent properties. And so Collegedale, in coordination with Hamilton County, did request that Hamilton County transfer its interest to the city. And an order confirming the sale of delinquent taxes recorded 2019. Of course, the property owner has a year to redeem the tax certificates and reclaim the land and clear the title. That did not occur. So in June of 2020, the property can now be conveyed to the city of Collegedale. But one note here is the approximate amount of the city's expenditure on the property, and this is the demolition cost that the city incurred, and then did subsequently place a lien on the property, is around $38,000, almost $37,000. And it may be more than that considering the other time that's been put into this, but at least on paper, the demolition proceedings are around $38,000. So several years ago, a letter to Hamilton County Real Property suggested that Collegedale might consider using that property as a pocket park. But I will tell you that idea has encountered opposition from adjacent neighbors already. Why did that do that? Okay. So with a pocket park, opposition from adjacent neighbors is a concern, which has already happened. That is not a theoretical, that has already been relayed to staff. The property is also not easily accessible. There's no parking and no sidewalks to this property, and it's one of the lightest populated areas of the city, with the exception of Fox Trails, Katy Kim. It's also one where many of the lots tend to be larger and very close to the city boundary in the county. And so when you have those conditions, it tends to kind of tamp down on demand for pocket parks. And the property would also be an ongoing maintenance issue for public works. Policing would be crucial due to the secluded location. So these are some of the things that we have looked at as staff. And so, if the pocket park is not the ideal use, what can you do? Sell the property on the open market, dispose according to surplus property policy. One of the steps, broker's price opinion or appraisal, depending on what state law requires. And I did not get to see if they specifically say an appraisal or if that's even an issue, or if our policy, I don't know if if a broker's price opinion would work. Best chance at recouping the demolition and maintenance expenses incurred to date would be a sale. It would return the property to the tax rolls. So based on some of the information there, the utility of a pocket park is limited. So our recommendation, staff, would be to sell the property at fair market value. If there are any questions, we can hit up a couple of those. That was a pretty quick run through.
Do you have any idea what it was currently assessed?
It was actually it was pretty close. The current appraisal, which is, as we heard, is being reappraised. The current appraisal came in right about the same as our cost in the property, the $38,000. And property itself is not terribly large. It's about a third of an acre. And there are some terrain issues in the back of the property there, or along the side there. I know at least the two adjacent property owners have expressed interest in purchasing that. Of course, we do have a process to follow for disposal of surplus property, even real property. So that's kind of brings you up to date of our analysis of it. Is open market would be the preferred means.
I like to see it sold so we can recoup some money.
Do we need to take an action on that at a commission meeting?
We will if you choose to sell it. So if that's the general consensus is to sell it, then I'll coordinate with Andrew and Kelly to make sure that everything's clear and then bring it to you to be deemed surplus and sold.
To me, more feasible.
I don't remember exactly where the pocket park idea came from, but just it's one of those that reality doesn't make that as attractive.
Well, it's light population and where it's located and everything around it, it doesn't seem like it would be an appropriate place to put it.
It reminds me of state of Georgia and probably a lot of other states. And when the interstates were built in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, not full rest areas, but just pull-offs where people would have, most of those are gone because nothing good happened there.
Yeah.
And so they've been pulled out because they were a place where you could pull off and rest and have a picnic, but they were far enough away so that you weren't right next to the interstate. But then again, nothing good happened on the other side of the tree cover. That's sort of what it reminds me of.
So more or less the best, I don't want to say lack of a better word, best bet would be like somebody that's adjacent to that already owns property, then buying it and just expanding their own.
They would have the opportunity to purchase the property and then they could do with it as they please under current zoning.
So if you bring this to us at the next meeting, we can vote and give you direction, and then you can bring it back to us, right? Or you just gonna bring it all to us?
It appears that the consensus is to sell it, so I was going to coordinate with everyone necessary to make sure that we were clear and then bring it to you as a surplus piece of property to sell.
That's good for me.
And then if there's a valid offer to bring that back,
Correct. We would surplus it first and then bring you an offer when we receive it.
that's all I have.
All right. So the next item is retired city manager's demand for car allowance. You've all had a chance to review the opinion from Larry Cash, the attorney we retained for this situation. I was able to speak to public entity partners today. Their feedback was that under a reservation of rights, they would defend the case if we were sued. They said it would depend on if we were sued, what was actually alleged and found before they could tell us whether or not they would be covered under our policy or not. They weren't sure at this point without, it was a quick phone call. But they would at least defend the case at this point based on the situation if we happen to be sued. So without this being a voting meeting, we can discuss the limits you're comfortable. We can, if need be, have an executive session that I can coordinate with Harry Cash. But I would like to come to the next commission meeting for a vote from the commission, clearly describing what it is the commission would like to do.
I think we need to have a executive attorney privilege meeting between the commission before we bring it to the board. Because there's three options, right?
Or somewhere in between if
Yeah.
the commission sees that.
That would be my preference, to have a meeting first to get the legal side and then vote in the next meeting.
Okay.
He could meet with us Monday afternoon. That'd be great, and then we could vote on it that night.
Okay.
And maybe give us a little bit more time than just 15 minutes.
Yeah, if he could be here.
Yeah.
Earlier.
And give us time to discuss it, yes.
I think
Yeah.
6 would be fine. 5 o'clock would be fine.
I think 5 o'clock would be better than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we may have more questions to arise and get it some good thorough view.
I'll reach out to him and then circle back. He is Signal Mountain's attorney as well. So I don't know how his schedule works out. He may need to come a little bit earlier, so he has enough time to talk to us and get back. I'm just not sure.
If not, do we have to meet on Monday to have an executive?
You'd have to have a special call meeting.
Special call meeting?
Not for an executive session.
Oh, you don't?
It's not public.
But there wouldn't be public notice, and since this is a legal situation.
Yeah.
I think we typically do them on Monday just out of convenience.
Well, I think that, and Sam serves other cities
Right.
too, and it just felt kind of like him. But in order to get this matter resolved quickly, but I don't want to be too expedient that we overlook certain things that we need to consider.
Okay,
So to get a better overall.
okay.
I'm open at 4 o'clock on Monday, if that would work for him. I'm not sure about the other people's schedules.
What is Monday?
The 3rd.
It's the 3rd of May.
Yeah, okay. I can be here by 4.
I'll reach out to Harry then and try to schedule it at 5, but understand we have some flexibility a little bit earlier if need be. All right. So that's all we have for agenda items. I'd like to go through the key managers, and we start with PD. Okay. Airport?
Nothing at this time.
Public Works? Codes?
Just one update, if you all haven't already stopped by the Economic Development Center, stop by when you get a chance. We completed the restructuring, having the bridge behind the secure phenomenal area with glass pass-through window, and really feel good about that change that we completed. So, please stop by.
And didn't we have a situation that we were much more comfortable with it being there already?
Yes, we actually had a situation last week. A gentleman came by. Speaking of Sundays, was Brittany very unhappy about the situation, and it made her feel a lot more safer behind that glass and behind that wall area. And so it was a good time.
Codes?
Just like to,
Sorry, planning.
I know. Just like to, and I didn't say this last time, but I'd like to welcome Christina to the, from Parks and Recreation, becoming part of planning and economic development. We've already had some cross collaboration on a few things, but a lot of work to do. And that's another area that there's a lot of room for, additional collaboration. So welcome.
Bridget?
I wanted to ask you all if you all have been made aware of our local legislators are pushing to eliminate Governor Lee's $200 million local government grants from the budget for next year because of the federal monies that the cities are expecting to receive under the ARP Act and Education Plan Act. Governor Lee's monies that he has, what he wants to give to the cities, can be used for 6 different things, which is your roads, your construction, your buildings and so forth. And the federal plan, although Collegedale is scheduled to receive over $3 million, most of the things that have been allocated in that plan, none of the cities can do with it. Collegedale is really unique because you do have a sewer system, and so it can be used for water and sewer. But the other cities don't. So we're pushing back on Senator Watson, Senator Gardenhire, and Representative Hazelwood, who are all in the finance committees, encouraging them to please let Governor Lee's $200 million in infrastructure grants still go on into next year's budget. So TNL has asked me to reach out. If you haven't already, please contact one of those three. And I've got plenty of information I can send you, talking points, and just some general information that would help plead our case to help get these additional funds for roads and other things in all the cities.
So have we received official guidance on how that $3.2 million can be spent?
No.
So we're just assuming that other cities really don't qualify for it, or did I
They
misunderstand?
don't have, right now, the four allowable uses that they know are coming are revenue replacement, essential worker pay, economic and community assistance, and water and sewer enrollment. Those are the four. The U.S. Treasury has to give detailed, more detailed instructions before mid-May. They're supposed to receive in mid-May. We still don't know exactly to what level, but out of those four, about the only one that any of the cities around here qualify for is Collegedale. The rest of them don't.
Another issue with that is Governor Lee's money could come to us right away versus the federal money may not be released until the new fiscal year. And some of the small towns need Governor Lee's money now to help with their expenses and what all has happened to them during the pandemic.
Ethan?
I just want to say that I'm glad that we're looking at the roundabout there at Leland and Swinier. I see there's several residents from Greenbrier, so I want to make sure that in this process, we are communicating with them and getting their input as well, so we're not adversely affecting them as well with something that we think is a solution and they're not happy with it. So just making sure that we're in full communication with their homeowners association, which I'm sure you are, but
We will. I wanted to get it in front of the commission first. But I'll send it to them.
okay, thank you. That's all.
Christian Baker?
Well, I want to just emphasize something that I know says quite a bit, which is she's in the right to, is that I don't want to repeat something that's going to be redundant. If I want to hear about. I'm concerned about what Commissioner White has said about the turnaround. We thought that might be a good solution. We've already gotten some negative feedback. But then I would like to see what we can find out and go from there. I am concerned. You've been aggressive about me. So I'm very pleased with everything that's going on. I have good reports now, and I just like to see Eric afterwards from me. And that would be
Vice Mayor?
Looks like they're paving the roundabout at Talent Road. Are they going to put a second coat on that now? It looks like they got the first coat on.
Yeah, before they open it to traffic, it's my understanding that they'll put a top coat on it, and it'll be several weeks till they open it up to traffic. They're supposed to be getting me a plan on when they're going to do that in the next week or two, but it'll be probably middle May, into May.
Okay, and behind where the garage was that was torn down, it looks like they got a huge ditch. Are they filling that in for foundation? If you look over and down into the valley there, if you will, where all the Wright Brothers trucks are and workers are. Have you seen that lately? It
I'm
looks like
not
a
sure
huge
exactly what you're
ditch that
talking
they've
about.
dug up. I mean, it's huge.
Okay.
I'm just curious what they're doing there on that piece of it.
Where exactly is it?
So you know where the garage they tore down and the road, I call it the
Yeah.
runaway ramp. It
Right.
looks like if you go off the runaway ramp down into the lower valley there, if you will, it's, yeah, golly. It looks like they built it or dug this huge trench out. And I don't know if that's for,
It's probably for the main foundation for a wall they're going to have to put over there,
okay.
is what I have to guess, but without the plans in front of me. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I didn't know if you had seen that. I was just curious about that as well. Yes, I will tell you, I don't know how many people were around when we did the roundabout at Southern. We had people either going straight through it, plowing straight through it. We had people who would go around it doing donuts, if you will. The police department were called out there many times. I heard complaints about that, and they went out there. And, you know, it's hard to catch people doing stuff like that, but being young at once in my life and having a Z28 Camaro, I can remember things like that. And I'm sure the new little sports cars that they have that hurt your ear when they take off. I think there's going to be a lot of noise issues with the roundabout, and I hate to say that, but I'm open to it, and I definitely want to see what we can, work out as a solution. That's all I have.
Mayor Lamb?
I just have a couple of things. First of all, Eric, I want to say thank you for your group, or I'm assuming that your employees cleaned up. This morning early, there was a trash bag that had been either thrown out or dropped in front of the Chattanooga Kidney Center, and it was a mess. And I thought, well, I'll call Eric when I get back home, but I went on another errand about an hour and a half later, and it was cleaned up. I just want to say thank you, because that was a mess.
Thank
A
you.
lot
I'll let
of
the guys know.
garbage there, so. Secondly, it has been suggested that as we have our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, that we stand for both. And if there's no opposition to that, we can just plan on starting Monday night, just standing for the invocation and having the Pledge of Allegiance while everybody's standing. Any thoughts about that?
I don't object. Most places we do that anyway. You know, you stand for a moment of silence, or and you go right into the pledge. We save about 2 minutes. That's the way to do it.
I mean, you have to stand anyway, you might as well stand for both. If that's okay with everybody, that's just will be our practice starting Monday night. Okay. Just for your information, I'm going to be out of town May 6th through 10. So if the attorney can't meet with us next Monday, I'll be leaving. The 6th is on a Thursday, so just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Please. That's all.
That'll do it. Adjourn.